Breaking news! Andrew Mangiapane has officially been traded to the Washington Capitals, and boy, are we feeling some type of way about it.
You're Locked On Flames, your daily podcast on the Calgary Flames. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Locked On Flames. As always, I am your host, Jess Belmosto, and thank you so much for joining me today. Whether you are a returning listener or a new listener, thank you so much for making Locked On Flames part of your day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off of your first purchase. Well, we are just going to dive into this today because Andrew Mangiapane was traded in the middle of the NHL awards. Good stuff. So we're going to talk about that and the kind of implications of clearing that cap space and that draft capital, and talk about Mangiapane's time as a Flame. Before we do all that, though, please make sure you are subscribed to Locked On Flames wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. We are here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week. Your team every day. Okay, so I was just enjoying myself, just watching some Instagram reels, and all of a sudden I get a nice little notification from Elliot Friedman that threw a curveball into all of my plans, and I'm sure took a lot of us, if not all of us, by surprise. Mangiapane was traded to the Washington Capitals for a 2025 second round pick. Originally, I was like, that's it. But then, after being blinded for a second, I realized that the Flames aren't retaining a penny of this $5.8 million cap hit for the next year. So that's huge, I will say. That's great. $5.8 million adds another winger to the mix if that's what they're looking to do. It puts them, believe, just around $28 million come Monday, free agency. So it's a start. But this stinks. I think that Mangiapane is obviously not the player he was. That happens. There's no way around that. But he did a lot within the community. He meant a lot to his teammates. He was one of the first Flames that I kind of picked out as this is gonna be a guy. And I was right. He was a guy. He was a solid two-way dynamic player. And this also opens up a spot on the power play, penalty kill. There's room now, and we've talked about it a lot because Mangiapane has had a tough 2 seasons after signing that extension, and hasn't been the same since his career year. And it might have been a fluke because of the way everyone was performing on that team. And I mean, he's 27 years old. No, he's 28 now. So he'll be 29 in April. And I mean, the Capitals just took on a really bad contract with Pierre-Luc Dubois. So thanks for taking on this not so great one too. I owe you one, I guess. I don't know. It's good for the Flames in terms of clearing cap space and not having to worry about this, because there was no way he was re-signing here. And it'd been talked about. I've talked about it a lot on the show. He wasn't signing a long-term extension here, and it didn't make sense for him to do that. He's going to get that change of scenery that I think a lot of players do need, like Jake DeBrusk, who we're going to talk about here in a little bit. Sometimes you just need that to shake change of scenery to shake things up and get you going again. And it also opens up the a roster spot for one of the young guys that we've talked about. We've talked about um, Coronado and Pelletier maybe making that next step. And I guess the biggest thing here is they continue to get younger and clear more cap space. This gives them the flexibility to do that. And this is what ultimately they need. This is what fans have wanted for so long. And it's happening because Craig Conroy has taken the organization by the reins and said, we are doing it this way. And I commend him for that. You know, I think he has had to come in and clean up some pretty big messes, and he's still in the trenches. Like we as fans are we don't have to worry about any of that. We can just sit here, like our jobs aren't on the line if we make a bad trade or if we miss the playoffs or you know, whatever the case may be. We can tune in whenever we want. Other people have to really be responsible, and I feel like that was missing in the previous administration, if you will. So good for the Flames. I think this was obviously a smart move. I thought that this trade was going to happen in the season, simply because they could have kind of could have like inflated his stats and his worth a little bit, but I like that it's happening now. I think it's good. Tough day to be Rasmus Anderson's son, who loves his uncle Andrew a lot. I'm interested to see what happens with Manja's breadsticks and how you know, if someone else takes over for that. But those are all things that get talked about off the ice, and well, they'll all get situated. But today we are here to continue talking about what this means for the Flames and how this moves them forward in this ever loving rebuild. But before we do that, we are going to take a quick break here, and I'm going to talk to you about Game Time. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. With killer last minute deals, all in prices, view from your seats, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. I will be using Game Time when I go to Yankee Stadium later this summer, if I go to another Red Sox game or find a concert in town. You never know. Game Time has concerts, comedy, theater, and sporting events. So find whatever you need, even at the last minute, on the Game Time app. I like that you get the view from your seats because sometimes you've never been to a venue and you don't know what might be in your way. And Game Time gives you the opportunity to see what you'll be seeing. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off of your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Thanks, everyone, for hanging out with me today on this Thursday edition of Locked On Flames. Not at all what I had planned, but thank you, Craig Conroy, for taking over and being proactive rather than reactive, because that's what the Flames need. I think we've talked about it a lot last season because Craig Conroy, like I mentioned a few minutes ago, had to come in and clean up a mess that he didn't directly make, but he sat by and watched it become the mess. And I'm sure, everyone learns differently. Everyone takes away different aspects of, you know, what they the good qualities and the bad qualities, and they integrate them into their own life. And Craig Conroy said, we're changing things. Things are absolutely going to change around here. We're done flirting with the idea of being a fringe playoff team. We are going to get bad to get good again. And that's part of this process. This was like the next Jenga piece, and it's wobbling, you guys. We're not fully gonna rebuild, but we're getting pretty close to where it can't be any more of like your foundation. I like that they're not retaining any salary. I think that's good. I think that the second round pick for next year is kind of doesn't sound as good, of course, because it's a second round pick. But this gives the Flames the opportunity to go into free agency with like another $6 million basically, with a clean slate and an open roster spot. Because whether you're rebuilding or not, you need to ice a team. You can't just go out there and play 3-on-3 for 82 games. It can't it can't just be Huberdeau, Kadri, and Weegar out there with poor Dustin Wolf in net. Like, you have to ice a real hockey team. And the Flames are a semblance of a hockey team right now, and draft capital has become like the buzzword. They have that. They have it this year. They have 2 picks in each of the first 4 rounds, and then again the 6th round, and they're adding to next year's. This is similar to what Arizona did for a while, where they just stockpiled draft picks and would trade them and then accumulate more and trade them to get players. And it's the smart thing to do. Like, you need draft capital in order to acquire players and acquire good players, because I'm sorry, but like, general managers aren't going to just take on your contract without any incentive. Like, there's no, so you have to sweeten the deal. And I think that it's smart to start doing that. Smart to start compiling those and adding them into the repertoire, the little Rolodex, I guess, the inventory of draft capital, so you can package them together in a future trade. Kuzmenko and Sharangovich are also on expiring contracts at the end of this upcoming season, and you might be able to get something out of that, by throwing in another draft pick. However, this is a whole different conversation. I think with Mangiapane gone, you might have opened the door for another few years of Sharangovich. I think that is a possibility and something to explore, of course. Kuzmenko's right around the same age as Mangiapane, so I don't know if you're looking to sign him for like 4 or 5 years. It's in Craig Conroy's hands, and I don't want to say I fully trust him, because this trade stinks. It stinks as a fan. It gets the job done, but it stinks as a fan. One of my friends on Twitter said that this is the equivalent of the Flames cutting their bangs and bleaching their hair because they saw their ex win a Stanley Cup. Yeah. Shout out to Liz for coming up with that, because like that does feel like an accurate description. It had to happen. There was no way around not moving Mangiapane. You were not extending him. You were not giving him a raise. And you needed to clear cap space and get younger. So long, farewell. It's going to be a little bit of a revolving door for the time being, and this is just the unfortunate part of this transition period. I don't know if we're calling it a rebuild or a retool. I don't want to upset anyone by using the terminology that they prefer or don't prefer, because like I know some fans are so against rebuilding versus retooling, and I'm just here to remind you that the Flames are going to stink so they can get better again. And $5.8 million in additional cap space, you guys. $5.8 million brings the cap space up to $28 million. That is a chunk of money. You obviously have to re-sign Dustin Wolf. That is priority number one. Bring in some free agents. We've heard from a lot of general managers ahead of the draft that some of their guys will be hitting the market on Monday. And a name that is consistently linked is Jake DeBrusk. I think, I don't, again, I'm horrible with numbers when it comes to like putting term and value together, but I think a nice 4 or 5 year money deal around that price range could get the job done. I think they should focus also on adding players to their back end, and not just guys that are like AHLers. I do think they need to to get that defense a little beefier so they have something to help Dustin Wolf, because right now it's not looking too promising. Like I said before, this was bound to happen, and it's just so weird that it happened tonight and out of left field during the, not that the NHL awards like are like the Grammys or something, and things like can't happen during them, but like it just feels so like non-hockey to do something in the middle of that. But coming up next, we're going to take a look at Mangiapane's time as a Flame and just how our little grain became a full-blown loaf of bread here on the Locked On Flames podcast. Thanks everyone for hanging out with me today on Locked On Flames. Make sure you are subscribed to the podcast wherever you get your favorite podcasts, and on YouTube as well. We are here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week. Your team every day. Mangiapane was drafted by the Flames in 2015. 6th round, 166th overall draft pick. 5'10", 184 pounds. He's tiny. That is a little breadstick. He played 417 career games with Calgary, had 215 points, 109 goals. I enjoyed watching Mangiapane play. He was one of my favorite players to watch when I first started covering this team, just before the pause and throughout this time. I think that it has been interesting. I think it has been unfortunate that he hasn't been able to find success like he did in the 2021-2022 season when he was 25 years old. He played all 82 games that season and had 35 goals and 20 assists, totaling 55 points. He was up there with Leon Draisaitl that year for power play goals. At one point, I'm pretty sure that they were tied, but Mangiapane had more on the road, which is interesting. I think that is one of the anomalies of the Flames in general, is that maybe not this past year, but they have played better on the road than they do at home. I don't know what it is, but he had oh wait, I was looking at that wrong. He had 11 even strength goals this year and 2 power play goals along with 1 shorthanded goal. Uh, no game winning goals, but we'll take what we can get, right? I think with Mangiapane, you have to remember that he also had a handful of coaches while he was here. And talk about Gaudreau having like a revolving door of coaches. Talk about Kachuk having a lot of different coaches, Sean Monahan. But so did Mangiapane. And like there was no stability behind that bench. And it wasn't a good culture for a bit. It's got to be a little frustrating coming up in, you know, pro hockey and having a coach that supposedly is fine kicking players and then gets tossed because he uses racial slurs. Like that can't be a good environment. And then you have Daryl Sutter who comes in and like tweaks or let's rewind. You have Jeff Ward who comes in and uh, uh just did not. He did not do well. And I think that this season Jeff Ward coached it was obviously this before the shortened season. During it was 2019, 2020. That season that was tough. I like Mangiapane was really breaking into the league. I would say like the season before he'd played half a season, but like this felt like he's getting his footing underneath him. Like it was just kind of hard to get your like gain traction. And then he had that really good year with Daryl Sutter in 2021. That team was such a fantastic team. Like the Backlund, Coleman, and Mangiapane line is something that I am going to miss, and I think a lot of fans are going to miss because they were a great line. Obviously, Backlund and Mangiapane, two great two-way players, and Blake Coleman has really come into himself and like playing some of his best hockey this past year, and it was nice to watch. I think that that line, while it was at one point the Flames' best line, did not it didn't like hit a wall. It just got outshined by some of the other lines. I remember watching the uh, playoffs, and the Flames could not figure out a way to shut down the McDavid's line. They kept putting out Gaudreau's line and then the second line and even like Lucic's like that fourth line. And they never tried the third line until game 5. And do you know what happened? It worked for a little bit. They showed effort. And unfortunately it wasn't enough, but could things have potentially been different had that thought popped into anyone's head any earlier? With Mangiapane's departure, you're opening up spots on special teams as well. Think that that's good. Obviously Mangiapane was like just straight up struggling. Um and I don't want to say he was taking up a spot because like that's not true. If there was a better option, there would have been someone else out there. But this gives someone else the opportunity to get more consistent reps. And that person to me is Matt Coronato. I think Matt Coronato on the power play is going to be great. I think that that is something that the Flames need to actually start integrating consistently. We saw him at the start of the season get the time. Get the time with power play 1. And even if he's just on the second unit and eventually like works himself, to the first unit, I think that that's great. I think that he has potential and he has a nice shot. That is something every aspect of the Flames are missing. And if you have him out there and you have Rasmus Anderson, who also has like that nice slap shot, like you have something going there. And you bring in a player like Jake DeBrusk and you have that, net front presence that you kind of have been lacking, you might be able to score a few more goals. It doesn't have to be a lot, just more than your opponent occasionally. I do wish the best for Mangiapane and his future endeavors in Washington and wherever he may go from there. I'm very excited for a new chapter in the Flames organization, as well as bringing in new players. I think Monday is going to be an exciting day. The draft is going to be exciting, and we'll have you covered here on Locked On Flames. Do not worry. But it's just a little bit daunting to think that, like, the Flames just traded a fan favorite. They did not hold back any punches, and it's not like it's just, like, a fan favorite in terms of, like, "Oh, yeah, he's so quirky, he might be a fourth liner, but he's a fan favorite." No, like, he was a good player. Um, I enjoyed covering him. I have enjoyed covering him, and I think that he's going to hopefully have a resurgence in in Washington. Hopefully, it's kind of similar to Sam Bennett. Hopefully, he doesn't get suspended like Sam Bennett has, but, um, just it sparks something new. And maybe Matthew Phillips and him will have maybe they'll live together or something, because I don't foresee them buying a house for one season. But anyways, I digress. Thank you everyone for hanging out with me today on Locked On Flames on this breaking news episode. I hope you all have a fantastic day. And tomorrow I will be back with Nick. We're going to dive more into this trade and talk, I'm assuming, the draft, because should anything else happen between now and then, we will also talk about that. And I will obviously have you covered tomorrow night as well for the post first round draft coverage. So make sure you're following me on Twitter at JustBelmosto, and you can follow the show on Instagram at Locked On Flames. And I will see you all tomorrow. Thank you again for making Locked On Flames part of your day. Stay safe, stay warm, stay dry, stay hydrated, and hold off on buying any jerseys.